Chris was a 16-year-old who worked at a busy diner in the city centre. Despite his young age, he already carried the burden of a troubled life on his shoulders. His always messy brown hair and watchful green eyes contrasted with the impeccable uniform he wore at work. While serving tables and making milkshakes, Chris couldn't keep his eyes off one of the regular customers, Jasmine. She was a girl his age, with long black hair and a contagious smile. Always surrounded by friends, Jasmine radiated a joy that Chris admired from afar. "Hey Chris, daydreaming again? Wake up and go serve table 5, said Tom, his co-worker, placing a heavy tray in Chris's hands. He blinked a few times, coming out of the trance he was in while watching Jasmine laughing with her friends. Chris had known Jasmine for a few years, since the days when they attended the same school. At that time, Chris's life was quite different. His father had a good job at a technology company, and his mother took care of the house and the children full-time. They lived in a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood, and Chris and his older brother had everything they needed. But everything changed when his father began to get involved with gambling. What started as an innocent pastime soon turned into a devastating addiction. The family's savings were consumed, and debts accumulated. The father lost his job and started drinking more and more. The mother, unable to cope with the new reality, also ended up seeking refuge in alcohol. In no time, the family lost their home and had to move to a small apartment in a suburban neighborhood. Chris's older brother, upset with the situation, began to get involved in minor scams and had been detained a few times. The father lived off odd jobs, buying and selling cars of dubious origin. Chris saw his world collapse. Without encouragement, he ended up dropping out of school to work and help with the household bills. He got a job at a snack bar and clung to it like a lifeline, determined not to follow the bad paths of his family. While serving tables, Chris watched Jasmine and her friends. She seemed to belong to a world so distant from his now. The daughter of a renowned doctor in the city, Jasmine continued to study at the best school, wore designer clothes, and was beloved by everyone. Chris felt a mix of admiration and sadness when he looked at her, remembering how much his own life had changed. One night, at the end of his shift, Chris noticed Jasmine standing alone outside the diner. She seemed anxious, looking around. Gathering courage, he approached her. "Hi, Jasmine, are you okay? Do you need any help?" he asked timidly. Jasmine smiled when she recognized him. "Hi, Chris. Actually, I'm having a problem. My dad was supposed to pick me up, but he's late and my phone ran out of battery. Could you lend me yours so I can call him?" Chris promptly offered his cell phone. Jasmine called her father, who informed her that he had an emergency at the hospital and couldn't pick her up. She then decided to take a taxi. "Thank you, Chris, you saved me," said Jasmine, handing back the cell phone. "It was nothing. Would you like me to accompany you until you find a taxi?" Chris offered. Jasmine accepted and the two began walking together. The night was pleasant, with a gentle breeze. As they walked, the conversation flowed naturally. They reminisced about school days, talked about funny teachers, and shared embarrassing situations they had experienced. "Remember Mrs. Peterson, that math teacher who always wore a giant pearl necklace?" Jasmine asked, laughing. "How could I forget? She once caught me dozing off in class and slammed the necklace on my desk to wake me up. I almost died of fright," Chris replied, making Jasmine burst into laughter. Time flew by as they talked. Without realizing it, they ended up at Jasmine's house. The porch lights turned on and the door opened, revealing a middle-aged man with a serious expression. "Jasmine, where have you been? You took so long that we got worried," said her father, casting a suspicious look at Chris. "Sorry, Dad. My friend Chris ended up accompanying me here," Jasmine explained. "Thank you, Chris, for accompanying her. Have a good night," said her father curtly, pulling Jasmine inside and closing the door. Chris stood still for a few moments, feeling his heart racing. That brief conversation with Jasmine had awakened feelings he didn't know existed. He went home with a smile on his face, feeling happy for the first time in a long time. In the days that followed, Chris and Jasmine started exchanging messages constantly. They talked about everything: music, movies, dreams for the future. Chris waited hidden after Jasmine's classes so they could talk in person, even if only for a few minutes. Sometimes Jasmine would even skip class to meet Chris. They spent hours together in the city park, talking and laughing. Chris felt light by her side, as if all the problems in his life disappeared. Jasmine, in turn, was enchanted by this new feeling she had for Chris, so different from the spoiled boys she interacted with at school. The relationship between the two young lovers began to affect other aspects of their lives. Jasmine spent more and more time on her phone, exchanging messages with Chris. During family meals, she barely touched her food, always sneaking peeks at her phone. "Jasmine, you know the house rules. No phones at the table. This is our family time," her father would say, annoyed. Jasmine's grades also started to slip. She would skip studying for tests, preferring to spend time talking to Chris. "My daughter, what has been happening that your grades are dropping? This is a decisive year for you to qualify for a good university," the father questioned, concerned. Jasmine would deflect, saying that the subjects were more difficult, but she would try hard. The truth was that she was completely involved in her feelings for Chris, neglecting her studies and responsibilities. One day, Jasmine's father was in his office attending to an old friend. Amidst their greetings, the patient commented, "I just saw your daughter, doctor. She has really grown." The doctor frowned, confused. "My daughter? Impossible. At this time she's in school." "I'm sure it was her," insisted the patient. "She was in the central square with that boy, the son of that swindler who deals in cars and sold me a car with a blown engine." The doctor felt a tightness in his chest. Everyone in town knew about Chris's family's bad reputation. At that moment, everything made sense in his mind. Jasmine's distractions, her low grades, the excessive time on her phone. Determined to take action, the doctor called his wife, letting her know he would be late for dinner. He had an urgent matter to resolve. It was already night when Chris heard knocks on his door. Upon opening it, he was surprised to see Jasmine's father standing there with a serious expression on his face. "Good evening, Chris. May I come in? I need to talk to you," said the doctor in a tone that brooked no refusal. Chris felt a chill in his stomach but invited the man to enter. The house was messy and dimly lit. Chris quickly removed some clothes from a chair so the doctor could sit. "Don't worry, my visit here is quick," said the doctor, remaining standing. "I have only one thing to say. Stay away from my daughter. I do not approve of your relationship with her. My daughter has been distant, and her grades are getting worse. I will not allow a teenage infatuation to jeopardize her future." The doctor cast one last stern look at Chris and left, leaving the young man stunned and furious. Chris kicked a cushion that was on the floor, venting his anger. "Who does he think he is to talk to me like that? I'll call Jasmine and tell her what her father did. I bet she will side against him and—" Chris raged. "You're not going to call anyone," said a firm voice from the bedroom. It was Chris's mother, who had heard the entire conversation. She stepped out of the room, surprising Chris with her clarity. "Chris, I know that in recent years I haven't been an example of either a mother or a human being, but I think I still have something good to contribute to this situation." Chris looked at his mother, confused. She continued, "I heard the conversation, and I think the doctor is right. His daughter is his greatest treasure, a gem he cares for with all his love. A girl who grew up with love, affection, and also everything good and the best. She has a bright future ahead." The mother paused, looking into her son's eyes. "But then you come along and you both fall in love. Her relationship with her family starts to deteriorate, her grades drop. Do you think you're a good influence on this girl, Chris? Look at our family and the way we live. Do you think the doctor is wrong in wanting to protect his daughter?" Chris remained silent, absorbing his mother's words. She continued, "Chris, I think you can be someone with a different future. Change your reality. But today you have nothing to offer that girl. Don't set her against her father. If you truly love her, do what's best for her." With those words, the mother grabbed a beer from the fridge and went back to her room, leaving Chris deep in thought. That flash of wisdom from his mother struck Chris deeply. He realized she was right. If his relationship with Jasmine was causing the girl harm, something was off. Blinded by passion, they hadn't seen this. Chris spent the night wide awake, reflecting on what he should do. The next morning he made a painful decision that he believed was the right one. He decided to end his relationship with Jasmine. The breakup meeting was difficult. Jasmine cried, asked for explanations, but Chris remained firm. He never revealed the conversation with her father, taking full responsibility for the decision. "Jasmine, I fell in love with you, something I've never felt before, and that's why I need to step away. We both have different futures ahead. You have a bright path in front of you, and I need to find my own path," said Chris, struggling against his own tears. After the breakup, Chris decided it was time to take a new direction in his life. He remembered an uncle who lived in the capital and had offered a job opportunity at his company. Chris decided to accept the invitation. He talked to his parents about his decision. His father, in a rare moment of clarity, supported the idea. His mother, with tears in her eyes, said she was proud of him for seeking a better life. Chris left for the capital with a backpack on his shoulders and a heavy heart, but determined to build a better future for himself. The years passed quickly. Chris dedicated himself to working at his uncle's company, saving every penny he could. In his spare time, he studied for college entrance exams. After 2 years of intense effort, he secured a place in the law program. Balancing work and studies was not easy, but Chris was determined to succeed. He graduated with distinction and soon obtained a position at a renowned law firm. His effort and dedication made him rise quickly in his career. 10 years had passed since Chris had left his hometown. Now, at 26, he was a lawyer beginning to carve his path, respected by his colleagues and gaining the trust of clients. He dressed elegantly and walked confidently through the streets of the capital. One afternoon, while walking through the city centre on his way to a meeting, Chris felt a tap on his shoulder. "Chris, is that you?" said a familiar voice. Turning around, he was surprised to see the doctor, Jasmine's father. "Hello, doctor, what a coincidence. What are you doing here?" Chris asked, still surprised by the unexpected encounter. "I came to visit Jasmine. She's living here, graduated in medicine, and is working at a hospital in the capital," explained the doctor. Then, with a look of regret, he continued, "Chris, I think I owe you an apology for being so harsh years ago, forbidding you to date my daughter and—" Chris gently interrupted him. "Doctor, there's nothing to apologize for. You were right to want the best for your daughter, and at that time, I wasn't the ideal person to be with Jasmine. It served to open my eyes, and look at me today. I studied, became a lawyer. I'm not rich, nor do I own properties, but I live with dignity and dream of a promising future." The doctor looked at Chris with admiration. "Congratulations, young man. You've truly achieved something remarkable. How about having lunch with me and Jasmine?" he invited, surprising Chris. Chris's heart raced at the prospect of seeing Jasmine again after so many years. He accepted the invitation, eager and a bit nervous. The lunch took place in an elegant restaurant in the city centre. When Chris saw Jasmine entering the place, his heart almost stopped. She was even more beautiful than in his memories, with an air of maturity and confidence that made her even more attractive. Jasmine was equally surprised to see Chris. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it was as if the 10 years that separated them had never existed. The conversation flowed naturally during lunch. Chris and Jasmine talked about their professional paths and their experiences in the capital. Jasmine's father watched their interaction with a discreet smile. At the end of lunch, the doctor excused himself, saying he had an appointment. "Why don't you two continue catching up? I'm sure you have a lot to talk about," he suggested, leaving Chris and Jasmine alone. The two decided to take a walk in the park near the restaurant. As they walked side by side, Chris felt that the timing was finally right for them. They were no longer impulsive teenagers, but mature adults with established careers and life goals. "You know, Jasmine, "I never stopped thinking about you all these years," confessed Chris, stopping his walk and looking into her eyes. Jasmine smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "Neither did I, Chris. I think our meeting just didn't happen at the right time in our lives." At that moment, under the shade of a large tree in the park, Chris and Jasmine intertwined their hands. It was as if fate had conspired for them to meet again, now at the right time in their lives. The story of Chris and Jasmine was not just about a love that overcame time and adversities. It was a story of personal growth, overcoming obstacles, and never giving up on dreams. Chris had transformed his life through determination and hard work. Jasmine had followed her path, becoming a dedicated doctor. Sometimes the right people cross our paths, but the timing proves to be less than ideal. Sometimes stepping back and allowing the seasons to unfold our best version can transform what had all the makings of a failed relationship into a beautiful, lasting love story. As they walked hand in hand through the park, Chris and Jasmine knew they were beginning a new chapter in their lives, and they were ready to write many new chapters of this exciting book that is life. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.